Hello everyone and welcome to the Ranger class version. Now, I will say this might be a little bit longer winded of a video, but this is the one to stick around for because I will say this before we jump in. The Ranger has by far been the most left behind class in D&D. I think the Ranger has some of the most, like one of the highest potentials, has one of the coolest kind of flavors in terms of a class, and yet consistently Wizards of the Coast has failed in regards of bringing this class up on onto the same level, same par, same playing field as the other classes. And so this is actually where kind of the whole inspiration for the series began. Is I saw the Unearthed Arcana, me and some of my friends were looking at it, realized that it did not do. We're hoping that the Unearthed Arcana was going to go ahead and show us some of the insights that Wizards of the Coast had done in order to bring the Ranger up from the 2014 and finally kind of bring it on par with the rest of the classes. However, when we saw it, though, there were a couple things that were, okay, we kind of were liking some of the early features that they had introduced. Definitely something that, was an improvement to some of the things that were in the 2014. However, they added some features that still just felt a slap to the face, almost like an intentional disregard for the creativity that they could have poured into this class and how they could have brought it up and just brought out that rooted kind of identity that the Ranger can have and should have. And so after seeing that and even looking into what the 2024 finalized version has, it still seems like nothing has truly been adjusted and no real love has been given to our boy here, to the Ranger. And so I just ask you to kind of sit tight, buckle your pants, because this is gonna be a little bit longer of an episode here, because I'm gonna go through kind of all the different stages and reasons between why I made the adjustments that I made, what the 2014 had originally done, and what they had attempted to adjust and do. And so I think this is gonna be kind of a deep dive analysis, and I'm gonna give a little bit more special attention to this class in particular, because this is kind of what started it all, and this is kind of where ground zero was, and this is where a lot of the heart and soul of kind of my creativity was focused, was to bring this class finally up into a realm of where it can stand triumphantly with its brethren of fellow classes. And so I guess without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this going. Above me is going to be the Unearthed Arcana. This way, which I did it right this time, is going to be my version of the Ranger. I do have the 2014 next to me, as well as I do have the Tasha's Cauldron of everything next to me as well. And so let's go ahead and do this. Hit points are going to be relatively the same. They're going to be the same. The proficiencies are going to be the same. And then actually, see, this is how down to the bones I got with this class. I switched to saving throws. The saving throws are no longer strength and dexterity. It is going to be dexterity and wisdom. The fact that the half-caster doesn't have its saving throw in its it's like a fly in here, and I like that it's going to harass me for this video. That's super cool, especially when I need to be locked in. Anyway, and so the fact that they don't have their spellcasting ability as a saving throw was kind of wild to me, and so I adjusted that to be dex and wisdom. They do have the skills as choose 3. I believe it always had choose 3. Yes, they did, which is one thing that the Ranger did actually have a little bit of a bump in, was the fact that they had a little bit more of that skill proficiency bump there in the beginning. I made it so that the tools, you get one choice of artisan's tools. I think it only makes sense for a class that really is out there surviving in nature, exploring, traveling. Surviving would have some sort of proficiency in the tools that the player can go ahead and kind of bring out and help build the backstory, with the fact that they, whatever tool set they choose, they can kind of tie that in and make for some cool RP moments. Armor is gonna be light and medium with shields. Weapons gonna be simple and martial. Equipment I'm gonna have taken from the Unearthed Arcana, of how you can either choose a money amount or just take the predetermined list. All right, jumping into the actual class features here. Deft Explorer. You are unsurpassed explorer, having learned and developed an extraordinary understanding of the various biomes and terrains of the natural world. Choose one of your proficiencies in a skill that appears on the Ranger skill list. You gain expertise in that skill. In addition, choose 2 types of terrain: Arctic, coast, desert. Be gone, fly. Be gone. You gain expertise in that skill. In addition, choose 2 types of terrain: Arctic, coast, desert, forest, grassland, mountain, swamp, or the deep dark. You have advantage on nature checks regarding information about those chosen terrains, and you have advantage on survival checks when traversing them and to track creatures in them. You gain a 3rd terrain choice at 9th level and a 4th at 17th level. Alright, so this is going to be relatively in the same vein of the 1st level Natural Explorer that they have here. However, I made it so before it says you have advantage on nature checks and advantage on wisdom survival checks to track creatures in them. I made it so that you have... Alright, so I figured it out. So they had made it so that in Depth Explorer, you only have advantage on nature checks about the chosen terrains, and you have advantage on survival checks to track creatures in them. I added in that you also have survival Yo, I'm just super excited about this class, apparently. I'm like fumbling over all my words. You also have advantage on survival checks when you're traversing them as well. For some reason, they didn't have that. It was just information about them and in hunting in them. I think it only makes sense to have it so that as you traverse them, you also can, like, so if, say you need to navigate and make a survival check to do that and guide your party through, you also have advantage on that. Additionally, you gain a 3rd terrain choice at 9th level, and you gain another terrain choice at 17th level. I did this because they had here, whenever you finish a long rest, you can meditate and replace one of the chosen terrain types with a different one. I like the versatility in that wording. However, I don't like the fact that you can essentially just have them all. If you can meditate and just replace them per long rest, then there's really no point of really even making choices. And so I think that making those choices are important. And I think that you can utilize those choices into how you can kind of tie that into your backstory. You can kind of make for cool RP moments. You can make the ranger, if you want to, be very designated to whatever maybe terrain that your adventure, your campaign is going to be in. But I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to be able to just on a whim change those up. I've heard explanations of like maybe for like RP the rangers may be referencing notes or something, and that's why they can adjust themselves. But I think for the amount of bonuses that you're getting from this feature, it kind of only makes sense to have it locked in. And then the reason why I made third choice and a 4th choice is because as you're adventuring as a ranger, say you are spending a lot of time in a certain terrain type, then you can choose that, and then you can kind of have that development of your ability to maybe navigate that terrain, and you can kind of see the growth of your understanding of other biomes as you adventure in your campaign. And so that is that. And then I also added an additional kind of an additional terrain type that is a little bit more up to the DM's discretion. I didn't want to bake it into the feature necessarily because it really, I feel like, is kind of just dependent on what the DM wants and just for their venture and whatever. So urban terrain type. Urban can be a terrain type as long as the DM gives the player authorization to choose it. This type of terrain consists of towns and cities, given that the rangers spent their time in such places to the point of a heightened understanding of how they operate and run. Standard nature checks having advantage like the other natural terrain types, the character gains advantage on history checks, while in towns and cities that they encounter and explore, extent of information is up to the DM's discretion and context. I also wanted to add this in because say that you are doing a more urban-based campaign, you're doing maybe a whole arc in a city, that someone could choose the ranger and you could open up this option for them to be able to utilize this and kind of give them that rogue, that ranger rogue kind of mix there, because I feel like the rogue is almost like a ranger in some capacity, except for they're a lot more like urban and they're a lot more embedded in that. And so I like that the ranger now has this ability almost to encompass a little bit of what the rogue can do, but still be true to the class, to the ranger class in of itself. And so that is kind of the reason behind why I did that. All right, moving on. And I do actually want to say that I do think that this is a good difference to the Natural Explorer that Wizards of the Coast had made in 2014. I think it breaks it down a lot easier for Depth Explorer, instead of all these different convoluted just like ideas and just a bunch of different things you kind of have to remember, and they're very circumstantial. I like that you just have kind of some raw stat bonuses in these terrain types without getting too into the weeds of it. So I like that. Spellcasting, not going to read that, so I'm going to go ahead and slowly scroll here. That way you can pause it if you'd like, Weapon mastery. Your training with weapons allows you to use the mastery property of 2 kinds of weapons of your choice with which you have proficiency in. Whenever you gain a ranger level, you can replace one of your weapon mastery choices with a different one. Super awesome, allowing to increase that arsenal for more martial-based classes, giving you the access to those mastery properties so you can do more things on your turn is always a good thing. So I like that. All right, level 2 is going to be Ranger's Quarry. Level 2 is going to be Ranger's Quarry. Harnessing the primal connection that you have established with nature. As a bonus action, you can call upon this mystical bond to supernaturally mark a creature that you can see within 120 feet. For the next hour, you gain the following benefits. Once per turn, when you hit the marked creature with a weapon attack, you can deal an additional 1d4 force damage. This damage is increased to 1d6 at 5th level, a d8 at 9th level, d10 at 13th level, and d12 at 17th level. If the creature you marked is killed, the mark fades. If you have advantage on any perception or survival check you make to find the marked creature while it is within 1 mile of you. If the creature goes outside the 1 mile radius, the mark fades. You can only have one creature marked in this way at a time. You can mark a creature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, and you regain all expended uses of this ability when you finish a long rest. Alright, some history to this, right? So, well, first of all, before I jump into my thing, essentially what WotC has been trying to do is they've been trying to make basically the Hunter's Mark the Ranger spell. They're trying to incorporate this this spell to kind of be a Ranger kind of magnified ability. They're trying to make it so that the Ranger can basically always have the Hunter's Mark spell prepared, and then as you progress through the class, you get a couple more things onto it. Though I kind of like the idea. I think it's poorly executed. I think that there's not enough progression for the actual Hunter's Mark spell and the abilities that you get in this version of Ranger to even make it necessarily a strong addition to the class. And so going down that same vein, this is where Ranger's Quarry kind of comes in. Additionally, a couple different inspiration points for this. The reason why I have Tasha's is Tasha has the favored foe, which essentially does kind of what the first portion of this is doing, where you're getting that additional damage whenever you hit the marked creature. However, that's where favored foe stopped. Unfortunately, I think that's where kind of one of the big issues with that feature lied, was the fact that that's all it did, right? Raw damage is cool, but when you're trying to build out this class, this Ranger class, to be this kind of hunter, tracker, navigator, all these different things, it just adding raw stat bonuses like damage to that isn't gonna round it out well enough to be this awesome blend of not only RP encounters but also combat. And so that is where you have advantage on perception checks and you've on the mark target, etc., comes into play. And this is actually Ranger's Quarry is literally from Star Wars 5e. I mentioned before that I play in a Star Wars 5e kind of rule set campaign with some of my buddies, except for it's in the homebrewed kind of setting, but we use those rules, and this is exactly what the Ranger for that system utilizes, is the Ranger's Quarry. And I thought that was really awesome. I think that just makes more sense. I think giving the Ranger its kind of a core resource / ability makes a lot more sense than you just giving it a spell and saying you can cast it for free a little bit and that's cool. It's like, that's not good enough. Biggest distinction too between Ranger's Quarry and Hunter's Mark is that you don't have concentration. You don't have to maintain concentration for your Ranger's Quarry. And I think I've been watching a lot of videos. I've actually been looking at what maybe other people have done, because I've seen a lot of videos coming out of like, hey, this is how we changed the Ranger. And so I was curious as to what I saw, or as to what was being presented, to see how it kind of compared to mine. But one big thing was the fact that across the board, everyone's kind of like, they're not doing the Hunter's Mark incorporation to this class well. And so that's another big reason why, to continue on that vein, is people are saying that if you have to concentrate on Hunter's Mark, then it's not that good of a feature, because it bogs you down in other things that you can cast in terms of spell casting, and it makes it so that your feature is essentially dictating on whether you can maintain it or not, and that sucks. And, concentration spells are supposed to, are good, but if you lose it, that's where it kind of has that double-edged sword of really strong, but if you break concentration, then it really hits you hard. And so this ability, not having concentration, makes it so that is already leagues above what they were trying to present. All right, so now I will just have to say that because I've introduced this resource, I also, as you'll see further on, it develops and grows, which is kind of how these features should work. They should develop and progress through not only the front half but the back half of these classes in order to make them relevant throughout the whole thing. And that's another issue with Hunter's Mark, is it's a stagnant spell that you can adjust a little bit, but you can't really do all that much to. So, continuing on. Fighting style. You have honed your martial prowess and gain a fighting style feat of your choice. Whenever you get a ranger level, you can replace the feat you chose with a different fighting style. Same thing. Ranger subclass is going to be at 3rd level. 4th level is going to be the ability score improvement. And also at 4th level, I added in quick disappearance. You become extremely efficient at hiding quickly and be breaking line of sight. As a result, you can use a bonus action to hide. This just makes sense. I've thought that this should be in the Ranger for a very long time, and so I added it in because I thought it just only made sense that the Ranger would be able to hide as a bonus action. Be able to quickly disappear is just something that their tool set would definitely develop and allow. So, moving on, level 5, extra attack. You can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn. Same as before. Nature's Insight. Your connection with the primal forces of nature has deepened, giving you insight on those you mark. When a creature is marked by a Ranger's Quarry feature, you can learn if the creature has any vulnerabilities, resistances, or immunities. Additionally, the duration of the mark is increased to 8 hours. Super, super cool. Super good. This already expanding upon that Ranger's Quarry feature. And besides the fighter, there's my fighter, I should say, my version of fighter, that if you haven't seen that video, feel more than free to check it out. But essentially, there is an ability like this. But being able to kind of discern your weaknesses or strengths of a creature is kind of a cool niche thing that nothing really else in D&D gives you. And so I think it only makes sense to have this class that hunts, adapts, reads, and just gets really involved in the prey that they're hunting, would be able to utilize this, kind of tapping into that supernatural aspect of the nature, kind of the nature's primal magic fueling them. So I like this. I like this a lot. Plus, you also get that increased duration to allow for longer kind of tracks or hunts if that's kind of what you're utilizing it for as well. Level 7 is going to be the subclass feature. Level 8 is going to be an ability score improvement. Level 9 is going to be the Tireless Wanderer. The endurance, skill, and stamina that you have developed to survive in the wild has reached a new height, granting you the following benefits. All-terrain. Your speed increases by 10 feet while you aren't wearing heavy armor. Additionally, you gain a climb speed and swim speed equal to your speed. Protective Lair. As an action, you can give yourself a number of temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier, minimum of 1. You can use this action number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. And you get all expended uses when you finish a long rest. And then Tireless. When you finish a short rest, your exhaustion level, if any, decreases by 1. I really like this feature. This feature was, essentially, so Roving was in Tasha's, Tireless was in Tasha's. I believe that they actually introduced the temporary hit points in the Unearthed Arcana, but and the decreased exhaustion. Yeah. And the decreased exhaustion as well. But so I basically just took a bunch of different sources of this feature, tied them all together, and implemented it at level 9. I think that all terrain, having navigated, across, landscapes and all, climbing, swimming. As you're living out in the wild, you would be doing all these things regularly. So I like the fact that as you're progressing through this class, you get the ability to now navigate basically any terrain type with ease. Protective Lair is kind of a cool way that you can RP. Hey. Protective Lair is kind of a cool way that you can RP your ranger getting ready, just adding, doing various things to, give themselves a little bit of protection before perhaps navigating some precarious encounter. And then I really like Tireless, just going to show the stamina well that the ranger can have. And I also like this feature a lot because my intention is to start adding exhaustion a lot more into my D&D games. I'm going to kind of rework the condition and kind of start to utilize it more. And so I like the fact that the ranger has this edge across the board that allows them to negate levels of exhaustion pretty quickly. I think that's super cool. It just goes to show that they really are this, well-traveled, hardened explorer. And so, yeah, so that's kind of, you'll see in the Unearthed Arcana, they had at 6th level they had roving, and then at 10th level they brought the other two into it. And so I just think, I mean, a good portion of the Unearthed Arcana for the Ranger was just some slight reworking of Tasha's, and then throwing it into the hard lined actual main class. And so, which, like, Tasha's had some good options, which is why I took them as well. But I mean, I feel like they just kind of did a little bit of a cop out in terms of filling the class with features that had already previously been well accepted, instead of taking those and also expanding upon them. So at level 9, this is like the biggest slap to the face ever when I was reading this the first time, was the fact that at level 9 you got Conjure Barrage, which is basically you always have the Conjure Barrage spell prepared. Just the spell. Unlike a lot of the other class features that when they introduce a spell and you always have it prepared, you can at least use it once for free. This didn't even say you could use it once for free. You just had that spell and that was it. So I was like, that's crazy. Okay. That's wild. Moving on is going to be Nature's Veil. You invoke spirits of nature to magically hide yourself from view. As a bonus action, you can give yourself the invisible condition until the end of your next turn. You use this feature twice per long rest. Nature's Veil was at 14th level for them. It was actually at it was kind of like the hide in plain sight feature for the 2014 at 10th level. I think it's a good spot for it there. I think that kind of the midway point. I think that 14th level was a little bit too late for that. And plus, I wanted to fill the back half of this class anyway with much more powerful features, and so I shifted it forward. So, level 11 is going to be your subclass feature. Level 12 is going to be your ability score improvement. Level 13 is going to be Unimpeded Navigator, which I already kind of explained that I shifted some things around, so we'll just go ahead and read that. Traversing difficult and precarious terrain has become second nature to you. You are no longer affected by difficult terrain. This benefit is extended to your party when moving through difficult terrain while traveling due to your leadership and guidance during navigation. I actually got the inspiration for this because of the Landstride ability. Essentially, in 2014, moving through non-magical difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. You can also pass through plants without being slowed by them. In addition, blah, blah, blah. Essentially, it gave you better traversal of terrain. And I like that idea. I like the flavor of that. I think that makes sense. Rangers are supposed to be kind of these guides of sorts in some capacity or another. And so I thought putting that back into this class only made sense. And so essentially, you are no longer affected by any type of difficult terrain, whether inside combat or outside combat. And then additionally, you're extending this benefit to the party during travel, during, getting from point A to point B, during exploration. This benefit is extended to the party. And so I think that's just a cool way to kind of give the Ranger that lead, give them an RP opportunity for that, and just show their skill set kind of coming out and building that more kind of rooted core identity for the class. 14th level is going to be Feral Senses. Your connection to the forces of nature has expanded your perception and discernment of the world around you, granting you dark vision with a range of 30 feet. If you already have dark vision from another feature or ability, Feral Senses adds 30 feet to that range. Additionally, you gain blind sight with a range of 10 feet. If you already have blind sight from another feature or ability, Feral Senses adds 10 feet to that range. So Feral Senses was the 18th level feature for the 2014, and it's also the 18th level feature in the UA. I dropped it down because I wanted to fill the back half of the class with better stuff, like I mentioned before. I also thought that, just looking at it, Blindsight's pretty awesome. And so I wanted to drop it down, but Blindsight is pretty good. And so I wanted to kind of bring in the distances for that, so that way I can make it a balanced adjustment in terms of the progression of the class. Now, the Druid also has Feral Senses. I did add it to that class because I thought it was pretty cool. The fact that because you're tapping into this primal magic, you're now almost getting the senses of, kind of nature through like the animals and through different, plants and different stuff like that. And you're almost getting this heightened awareness of everything. I thought it was really cool. And so the Druid actually gets a better version of this because they are a full caster. But I thought it was cool, and I also wanted to add in Dark Vision there to really kind of round it out a little bit, in case you are playing a human or some sort of race that doesn't have the features of Dark Vision. I think it's cool that you now have that based on this feature. So All right, moving on is going to be level 15, subclass feature. Level 16 is going to be an ability score improvement. Level 17 is going to be no class feature. I have referenced this multiple times, but in case this is your first video, I essentially leave a gap for any half casters and full casters in the feature lineup in order to kind of give marshals a little bit more of an edge in terms of core class features and give them a little bit of a bonus and bringing them up in a little bit more even across the balancing floor. And additionally, because you're a spellcaster, especially 17th level, you're getting access to your 5th level spell, you're getting access to more spells, and so you're still getting things at this level anyway, so it's not a total just gap. Level 18. Now, this is like my favorite feature that I introduced into the class. This is what I spent a lot of time thinking about, focusing on, and so I'm really happy with this one. I think this really rounds out the Ranger's Quarry progression well, and I think it really makes the back half of Ranger, especially you're getting to that peak, you're getting to that capstone, and I think this really pushes the Ranger in an awesome direction and gives them a super big power jump. Levels 18, enhanced feature, enhanced marking. You have reached a heightened peak with your bond to the primal forces and energy of nature, allowing you to manipulate and enhance the powers that have been gifted. The quarry that you mark is destined to reach its end one way or another. You gain the following benefits. Extended marking. The range of your Ranger's Quarry feature is now increased to 300 feet. Enhanced marking. Whenever you mark a creature with your Ranger's Quarry feature, you can apply one of the following effects. Splitting mark. The mark affects 2 creatures within range instead of just 1. Shared mark. Choose 1 friendly creature within 30 feet of you at the time of marking a creature. That designated creature now gains the benefits of the mark until the duration ends. Tracking mark. The duration of the mark is increased to 24 hours, and the radius in which the mark stays active is increased to 50 miles. Additionally, the creature affected by the mark can be seen as a silhouette, regardless of the terrain or obstacles that separate you within 150 feet. Weakening mark. The marked creature must make a wisdom saving throw equal to your spell save DC or become vulnerable to 1 damage type that you choose from the following list. Acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. The creature is vulnerable to that damage type until it takes damage from an attack that deals the chosen type, after which the weakening effect fades. This feature is, I love it. I love it so much. I love the fact that it's so versatile in so many different ways. You can make it so now you can hit 2 different creatures if you need to make, maybe there's 2 high priority targets. You can now focus your additional damage towards 2 different creatures. You can also mark them, and so that way if maybe there's 2 high profile targets, you can then have them both tracked in case you need to navigate them. Maybe you're in a role-playing situation. You can now mark 2 of them. It's just there's a lot of opportunities for that. To expand, both inside of combat and out. Shared mark is awesome because then you can give the ability for another creature to help you track because they're getting all the benefits. So the other creature is getting the benefits of the damage, is getting the benefits of the ability to have advantage on perception or survival checks. And so there is just a lot that goes into that, and it's really opening the floor to be able to bring another character into the fold and assist you in whatever it is that you're doing with the mark. Tracking mark allows you to just become a very, very good prolonged feature that can allow you to bring this encounter or allow you to basically long con in a way with your mark. Now that you can have it be up to 24 hours and you can really, and it's up to 50 miles now, so you can track them for a long ways. You can also see them regardless of what the obstructions are in between you for a certain range. So super awesome. And then weakening mark, in case you just need to bring down that big baddie that you're fighting, and so you can coordinate with some of your other party members or set this up for maybe a following attack that you have lined up. And so very, very, very versatile here in the things that you can do. So. And then, of course, you now have a 300-foot range that you can also mark a creature with. So it's just good. It's just really good. So 19th level, ability score improvement. And then 20th level is going to be Master of the Wilds. Years of training, practicing, and executing has made you the epitome of a hunter. You can navigate, traverse, track, stalk, and kill far beyond the best. Assisted by your deep-rooted connection to nature, you gain the following benefits. True understanding. When a creature is marked by your ranger's quarry feature, you can choose to understand any means of communication that it might use to interact with you or to those around you. You can communicate back in the same manner to the creature unimpeded. Unfaltering mark. When you make an attack against the target that's marked by your ranger's quarry, you can also add your wisdom modifier to the attack roll. Additionally, whenever you hit your marked target with an attack roll and deal damage to it, you can add your wisdom modifier to the damage. And skill set mastery. Choose 3 skills from the following list to gain expertise in, even if not previously proficient: acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, investigation, perception, nature, stealth, or survival. True understanding, I thought it was just going to be kind of a cool flavor thing. You know, the fact that you've been hunting for so long, that you've been dealing with so many different creatures, and the fact that you have this, you know, assistance from the primal magics of nature. The fact that you can just interact with basically and communicate with any creature. I thought that was just kind of cool. You know, being able to let the ranger have that as part of his tool set, I think just makes sense, and it kind of, it's just going to be fun for RP. And then Unfaltering Mark is actually very similar to the Foe Slayer 20th level for the 2014, which is basically you can add your wisdom modifier to attack rolls or damage rolls. So, and then in the 20th level for the UA, you also, if your attack roll misses the target, you can add your wisdom modifier to the attack roll. Yeah, I essentially I just took this, reworded it to make a little bit more sense, because if it misses, you can do things. I just made it so that you just always baseline have your wisdom modifier added in there, which essentially, it's kind of crazy. That makes it so that you potentially on your wisdom mod, you have a +5 to your damage and +5 to your attack rolls, to hit rolls. So, yeah, very, very good. Also, just a little fun little, you know, tidbit here. That also applies to if you share your mark with somebody else. They would also get +5 and +5 or whatever your wisdom modifier is. They'd also get that. Or if you split your mark, then you have 2 creatures that you can do Unfaltering Mark towards, or talk to, or, you know, whatever. So very, very good that with that synergy. And then skill set mastery. I just like the fact that, you know, having hit that capstone ability, you are now basically there's certain realms of your expertise. There are certain realms of your skill set, I guess. Skill set mastery. There's certain realms of your skill set that are just incredibly, incredibly good, and that you have honed into the point of excellence, and that you're just very good at performing in them. So, yeah. I really like my version of Ranger a lot. I mean, like, I just think it progresses much better. It doesn't I forgot to mention this, but 17th level, they were like, oh yeah, Conjure Volley. You now get Conjure Volley as a spell, and you can't even cast it once. That's your 17th level. Have fun. Like, what? I won't go too far into it, but it makes no sense. And so dude, this is, you can sense my frustration, I'm sure. And so this is the reason why I went through, and I felt the need to just remake this and build out the progression of the Ranger, and how the class ultimately gets from level 1 to 20, adding in all these different fun features that gives them, that truly taps into the play style that the Ranger should be. And I think this class is now standing tall amongst its fellow class members. And so I'm really happy, and I hope that I hope you guys like it as well. I think that I've seen some other cool variations. Like I said, I have been watching some other videos and stuff, and so some other people have some awesome ideas. But it is kind of funny to see that some of the ideas that I incorporated here before watching those other ones had very similar you know, characteristics of what we've kind of built out and what we added into the class. And so it's kind of just funny, But yeah, woof, long-winded, but, you know, this is where it all kind of began, and so I feel like I needed to do it justice. And so that is about it for this. If you want access to this PDF, it'll be the link will be in the description of the video. I made this whole document by utilizing the website The Homebrew, which lets you kind of build out D&D style documents, which is cool, super cool. And of course, if you have any feedback, constructive feedback, feel more than free to leave that in the comments and tell me what you think. Definitely interested to hear what you guys have to think, and if this is meeting the itch or the expectations that you think Rangers should have. And so I'd be curious as to what you all think, but I will not stick here any longer beating a dead horse. It's just really really happy where it is now, and so I guess I'll see y'all in the next video.